Right then, welcome back. Today, you've probably guessed, we're going to do this. A setup for the 2002 Yamaha R6. Very pretty bike. The wild child of the late 90s, took over from Kawasaki. It would have been better if it was the pre-facelift with the non-LED rear light. But hey, horses for courses. Tuned up, she's not too bad. 146 horsepower, 177-ish kilos with a big fat carbon Akrapovic pipe. And this was quite tricky. Now, we're going to do it slightly different. We're not just going to go, I went here, there and everywhere and this is the setup. I'm going to give you a bit more detail, try and explain things a little bit more, just because I've had quite a few questions in the comments saying, how do I get this, or how can I increase heat in this tyre? So if we go through it when we do the bike, hopefully everyone gets a bit more out of it. I get to talk at you a little bit more, which everybody loves, not. And we can just drill down into what the bikes do and why they do it. So first thing we did is we did a 2 and 8 setup. I haven't used this bike for a long time. I moved the calibrations to soft because I remember the rear of the bike being a little bit difficult, which I was right, but we'll come on to that in a little while. The first race, we used the stock 600cc Cup event in the European League. So I'm going to go through each event and use a bike from each event because it was getting a bit weird trying to pick tracks and events and whatever, and it just wasn't quite working. So we're just going to go back to basics, go through each event, pick a bike, and we'll go through it. Cadwell motorcycle circuit full, 5 laps. That's a big race for a 600, 5 laps. And as you can see, she's a little bit understeery. She doesn't really want to turn. The back tyre's quite cold. We have got soft on the front, soft on the rear. It's not really using the rear tyre properly, which, as you can see when you get on the gas as well, it's kind of stepping sideways a little bit. So there's a little bit of work to do on the setup, even by the end of the race. I mean, softs on a 600 at Cadwell, it should be boiling that front tyre. It should be putting it under a lot of pressure. There's a lot of heavy braking zones. There's a lot of downhill and off camber braking zones as well. So to me, the bike wasn't quite working right. It felt a bit disjointed on a 2 and 8. So we just had a little bit of work to do. And after every race, after every event, we'll do a time attack. So we went into the setup and we added a little bit more front end. We did spring hardness, we did compression. We didn't do rebound because it's half of whatever you compression and spring hardness is. And we took one off of the spring hardness on the rear and one off of the rebound on the rear, just to try and calm that back end down. And it gave us, perversely, it should have made the front end a little colder, but it didn't, because it's putting more energy to the rear, so the bike's driving forward harder, if that makes sense. And we took a little chunk out of our race time. I still wasn't mega happy with it, so we went to a medium front, which would have moved more energy to the rear to make the rear a bit warmer at the cost of heat in the front tyre. It's still green, so again, I wasn't massively concerned. Race-wise, we did a 129.2. We drilled it down to a 128.9 using the soft front and the little changes. By sticking the medium on, we took, just over a second out of it. Went to a 127.755, and again I took another nearly half second out of it. No more changes, just running that same setup, doing laps. Now, that told me the front end wanted more support, and that way I could probably risk moving a little bit more energy to the rear by using a softer spring. Don't worry about the stepping out thing, we'll come to that in a little while. And did it work? Yes, it did. So the excess of energy in the front, we've moved to the rear, which has allowed the bike to drive forwards more. It turns in cleaner because the front end's a bit stiffer, so it responds better. So we're generating more energy at the front because the bike's turning harder and it's turning faster, which is moving more energy to the rear. So we've made it stiffer at the front, softer at the back, which should have made it an absolute mess, but it didn't, because we've just managed the energy flow, and we've ended up with a front tyre similar to the end of the race and a rear tyre that's working properly, and the bike's actually driving, and we ended up on a 127.121. Now, took us 9 laps. We were thereabouts, 128.9 to a 127.1. What's that? 1.8 seconds for a few little clicks here and there, running the same tyres, and we ended up 17th, which it's 789 to 796 on the rating scales. Not great. I mean, there's a Daytona there at 764. It's the back end of the bike that stops it being any quicker. It just wants to go sideways. I mucked about with all sorts and just, you saw it then again, and I just couldn't really dial it out. We then ended up at the Nürburgring Mullenbachschleife doing a time attack in the wet. Now, this is the event that I used with the ZX636, the B1H, and we ended up setting a reasonably quick time. Now, in the wet, it did a 40.7, which is neither here nor there. I just did the event. It was the quickest time I've ever done in that event because we've set the bike up properly. However, I was more interested in the dry because we were already second on the 636. Now, I do like this little animation as well. Like, they could have just put a load screen in. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think that is a really nice little touch. It's a shame the rest of the game isn't engineered with the same amount of attention to detail. We did a lot of laps, 23. Holy moly. And we ended up on a 38.772. Now, that was faster than the ZX636, and it was faster than the top time last time I had a look at the leaderboards. But between then and now, a individual that you might recognise from the leaderboards called Sacred Meerkat, cheers buddy, sent me a message going, oh, that sounds like a challenge. I'll just take your ZX636 B1H and just stick it on the top of the leaderboards by nearly a second. So yeah, cheers mate, thanks a lot. So I was feeling all giddy and proud that I'd managed to absolutely thrash this R6 round the Mullenbachschleife, and it takes that bump very well. I don't know whether it's to do with wheelbase or rake and trail or anything like that on the front forks, but it just takes that bump into the little bit of track that joins the two halves of the circuit very, very well. But yeah, we did a 38.772, and me getting all giddy and carried away, I was like, oh, well, that'll be top because I've beat the... Oh, no, it won't. No, it's still half a second. So yeah, thanks. Hard medium on the ZX6, be interesting. I wonder, did you use the setup that I did, or did you use your own? And would you be willing to share it? I don't know. You can but ask. So that was that done. We then went to Mugello in the wet, and it struggled. It really struggled in the mixed conditions. We had a right ding-dong with an Aprilia and a ZX14 or a ZZR14 for normal people. The bike just wanted to keep running wide. I don't know if it was an excess of grip at the rear or not enough grip at the front, but an easy way to counter that, which we'll talk about in the time trial, is just knock the front end down a little bit, take something out of the spring hardness and that, and it should dig the front tyre in a little bit better. We're on the wet tyres, we're not on the stock tyres, and yeah, it's not as fast as a ZZR 1400 in a straight line, and then it just struggled. It just struggled. By the end of the race, the tyres were reasonably warm. We're getting mugged off in a straight line as well because we're a 600. And like I said, you could take the -1 off the spring hardness, compression and rebound on the front end, and it should dig the front end a little bit more, move a bit of energy forwards and just alleviate that front end push in and running wide. Then we went to Portimao, and this is the last race, and yeah, fun and games. I was getting quite frustrated. It wasn't that the AI were slow, they were quite quick, but they were also idiots, as they sometimes are. The R6, now we've made no more changes. All we did for the race is I put a medium front on a soft rear, and we just raced it as it was, and it was really rather good. Normally, if you're starting 20th, by the time you've got going and you've got through the first couple of corners, the leader's got a 5-6 second gap. It's normally a Spaniard or a Portuguese, and it takes a fair old while to track them down. However, the R6 was very, very good. It tracks bumps and curbs really rather well, much better than the B1H. I've just recently been using a 2005 CBR 600RR as well, which I said I was going to do, but I used it a couple of races and I came up with this idea of going back to the start of the game and doing all the events, so that'll come a little bit later on. Yeah, much better than both of them. I don't think it's got the top end, I don't think it's quite got the power. I don't know if they map aerodynamics in the game, but on the brakes and the suspension over the bumps was very, very, very good. Probably one of the better 600s. The Triumph probably a little bit better, but the R6 is pretty good. It was warming the tyres up, and there you go, straight over the bumps, no problem. A lot of other bikes, you would have been eating gravel. It warms the tyres well. Again, Portimao, a lot of energy in the front end of the bike. It just takes it and absorbs it, and it's quite, for the want of a better word, malleable. You can do what you want with it, and it will take whatever shapes you want and just get through the corners and do it, even through the last bend. I mean, there's some horrendous bumps down here, and yes, it looks like it's all over the place, but the suspension's working, and that's what we want. It doesn't matter that the back wheel's bouncing up and down. The rebound and compression settings are allowing that wheel to stay in touch with the tarmac, and it's driving forward, and it's gripping, and it's doing everything we need. So, time attack, last time attack then. I wasn't hopeful until I saw the leaderboards. Our race time of 150.2 would have put us 8th or no, it would put us 9th. So our next target was 8th on a 150.1, and we ended up on a 148.6. Potential best time 148.2, but I couldn't put the lap together because Portimao was rather difficult. The only changes I made for the time attack was to go to a hard front, medium rear tyre, and that was it. I just did laps until I felt that I'd extracted the maximum potential that I could out of the bike, and we went and basically abused it. I love it when the setup just allows the rear of the bike to come off the floor under the brakes. I don't know why, it reeks of late 90s, early noughties superbike racing, World Superbikes or British Superbikes when they're on the gas. It just tickles me in places that a lot of things don't, not even Mrs. Motto. So yeah, it just, through the Craig Jones, yeah, there's a bump and it's moving about, but the grip's there, back end off the floor again, tipping in, sliding about. So 10th at 148.7, so we didn't drag a massive amount of time out of it. We just took another 10th really, 1.1 tenths. But it just takes it. It's a good bike. I wish it was the pre-facelift, as I said at the start of the video. I don't think the LED lights do it any favours. I think the normal organic lights were much better. It was a much cleaner look on the back end. The facelift, the Mark II if you will, the special edition, the Rossi special edition, the Sun and Moon bike, that was a complete overhaul. They should have saved the LED stuff for that, but they didn't. But hey ho, beggars can't be choosers and all that. And yeah, it actually did alright. We went 5th, which instead of just being the fastest 2002 R6, it's actually the fastest 600, the fastest R6, whatever you want to do. Not by much, 0.8 of a second, but it's done. It's a nice bike. It's very, very, very nice to use. Setup wise, that's where it ended up. Use it, abuse it. Calibrations, I've gone on soft. I quite enjoyed it on soft. A lot of bikes I like them on aggressive, but again, let me know. Don't forget to use 2 on launch because it'll flip you over the back. Pros and cons. It's a competitive 600. It is very competitive. It's not got the top end of the 2015 and the 2019 bikes. It hasn't, especially the R6, so you've got to do that. It's very, very good front end on the brakes and turning in. Once you get the setup right, it does turn in really well, and it's pretty stable over the bumps and curbs. Cons, it's a bit down on power. Well, we talked about that before. Rear end's a bit wayward. You've seen that. You've just got to manage it. That's why I went with the soft calibrations, and it's not great in mixed conditions. You might need to make a little bit of a tweak, but other than that, it's a nice bike. It talks very much to my younger self, being a man in my early 20s when they came out, and yes, I like them. I'm not a massive fan of the bog standard box section swing arms. You've got to do something with that, but hey, who needs 150 horsepower when you can have something that's pretty? I like it very, very much, and that's it. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know, give me some feedback on the new way of doing it, and let me know if it's good, bad, indifferent, or you just don't care and you just want the setup, in which case I'll tag the setup at the start of the video. And that's it. Thanks for watching, comment, like and subscribing. Fingers crossed, I'll see you next time. Take care, stay safe, peace.